Digimon Ghost Game another week on, and Meicoomon plagues all the characters in the show, particularly Gammamon. Now, I'm not gonna lie, even after last week's heated discussions, I did enjoy this week's episode, but that single-handedly goes to Gammamon being the cutest thing pretty much in fiction, but also down to seeing Meicoomon again. Yes, Meicoomon from Digimon Try, but alas, Meicoomon cannot catch a break. Once again, Meicoomon is miserable. Toe, what's the problem? I know people are going to want to talk about Gammamon's super sad story, but you know what's even sadder? The fact there is no resolution for Meicoomon. But there is a really interesting premise about a holy Digimon that is scornful and left behind by its friends. So I want to talk about in episode 32 what could have been, instead of what actually happened. So Gammamon this week is in utter despair, right? I've never seen Gammamon this sad in my life. It was a really frustrating situation with Meicoomons kind of powers becoming the, what's the word? And no one could do anything about it, and the only thing that Gammamon could do was just eat tons of chocolate, which Meicoomon hated. Cute resolution, but can you imagine if that wasn't an option? And in Gammamon's frustration, Digivolve to Gullus Gammamon and just absolutely slaughtered all the Meicoomon? No, I'm not a sociopath. I think it would have been a good opportunity to explore Gammamon and Gullus Gammamon more, because this is the first kind of betrayal that Gammamon has felt from Hero. I'm sure he understood that it wasn't Hero's fault, but still the frustration, the feelings there. For me personally, could have easily been a Gullus Gammamon episode, and I really don't see why not, when it was a Kano Vicemon episode. But that's not what happened, but instead we got parallels to Meicoomon. But then what happened to Meicoomon? Because of the parallels being drawn between the two Digimon, and the way that Gammamon felt, was also how Meicoomon felt. What becomes of Meicoomon now? Just disappears off the face of the earth? I think there was something they could have done with Meicoomon there. Like, that could have been an opportunity for Meicoomon to Dark Digivolve, and so Meicoomon loses its head, goes around attacking all of the Meicoomon and Hero because it wants revenge. But Hero and Gammamon have a disagreement about how to handle those kinds of Digimon. It would confirm that Gammamon is the correct Gammamon, not the imposter. Now, it could have easily been a Kino Vicemon versus Meicoomon Vicious Mode incident that was justified because of what Meicoomon did, one of the episodic Digimon, which then spirals into a more complex and multi-layered villain in Meicoomon, who isn't inherently bad, but wants revenge on Meicoomon, but Hero and Gammamon disagree. I know I'm just writing headcanon, I'm not saying it has to happen that way, but it's just that's one of the many ways in which you can take episodic, weekly appearing Digimon and use them as a tool to escalate a different problem higher. It's a bitter pill to swallow for me to accept that Meicoomon is going to disappear into the shrubbery. In fact, having the parallels between Gammamon and Meicoomon potentially evolving to Meicoomon Vicious Mode would have been quite the eye-opener for Gammamon Hero, I imagine, because we have Gullus Gammamon. I enjoyed the episode for trivial reasons, and it was a little bit of a cop-out that I enjoyed it, but I can't lie that I enjoyed it. The frustration comes from the fact that it could have done a lot more with maybe one or two more steps. You know, obviously logistically, the eating chocolate competition makes sense because that's the easiest way out. It's still fun and it's very cute. But the Meicoomon scene was so impactful and so, like, shocking. It's just kind of a shame that nothing will come of that, really. For me personally, I'm pretty hard pressed to find an explanation why they shouldn't have rolled with some kind of Meicoomon plot as maybe the first major villain, which is kind of not Meikoomon's fault and quite understandable and quite relatable as a villain, whilst also drawing comparisons to Gullus Gammamon, whilst also potentially provoking Gullus Gammamon. And in the midst of all of this meaty plot stuff, you still have Meicoomon appearing in the episode as intended, and of course would have been a great head nod to try, with Meicoomon being the misunderstood villain. The spirit of the episode was there. It was really sad seeing Gammamon like that. I think a lot of the art was spectacular, and I think really reinforced the episode's feeling and what they wanted to get across to you as a viewer. But I do think a lot of the time Ghost Game is maybe one or two small steps away from turning an episodic weekly Monster of the Week into an episodic Monster of the Week episode, but it also has an overarching maybe 3 or 2 episode plot. Oh, Ghost Game, it's such a frustrating show, but what's more frustrating is that people can't see why it's frustrating for other people, because with the sheer amount of material they have in Ghost Game, and even in just this one episode, they could do so much with it. Like, Meicoomon was probably the perfect Digimon in that moment introduced to Gammamon, in terms of the parallels you could draw between the two, and yet, just nothing came from it. This week's episode is the definition of a Victoria's sponge cake with some raspberry and cream, but when they finished the cake, they scraped off the raspberry and cream stuff. The cake itself is fine, but it's just fine. You had something better as you were building up to finishing the cake. But that's just my take. But I do think either Gullus Gammamon or Meicoomon Vicious Mode should have happened today. But that's all I have to say about that. Take care.